Thank you for inviting me to speak. And it's a great initiative that NPC is doing for mental health awareness. I'm glad to be happy. I'm happy to be part of such an initiative to create mental health awareness.
Thank you, Dr. Haqqani. Thank you so much. Actually, National Productivity Council is trying to provide a platform to all the, common citizen of the country, with doctors like you, to get their, advice on mental health issues. You are aware that mental health issue is so important, and we are not able to diagnose, rather we are not able to appreciate the problem with the mental and the brain, what we call brain. And all the time we think that it is something else, and rarely, most of the time we are not able to diagnose it.
Yes, people are not aware of it. Yes, sir, you're correct.
And even we diagnose, we are not ready to go to the doctor.
Yes, they're not ready to go. But in recent times, I have seen, the stigma has reduced. People have become more open to accepting that, yes, they are suffering from a psychiatric illness or a mental illness. And they do seek help.
This is very good sign, yes.
Yes.
It is being brave if you go to psychiatrist. And then what happens, that third thing is that even if you are ready to go, you are not able to access doctors because they are so rare, so few.
Yes.
So that way, your coming on this platform and telling us all what is this about is a very, very big thing. And National Productivity Council is really, really obliged to you for such kind of kind gesture.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Ajmer Singh helped us a lot in bringing, contact with us, and we are really thankful to him also that he has arranged this kind of contact for such a common good.
Yes, sir. It's. I think Mr. Ajmer Singh has done a very good initiative also in creating awareness.
Now, Mr. Ajmer Singh is, live on video. I think before you start, Ajmer Singh ji, can you please tell us something about your experience, and your thanks is also due to Madam Dr. Haqqani. So kindly, tell us something about it.
Oh, sir. आप मुझे देख पा रहे हैं? Am I audible? Perfect.
Yes,
perfect.
Audible, sir.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And so before I introduce Dr. Haqqani, and I think at the outset, I must thank Twitter, because I connected with her on Twitter. And so social media does good things also.
Yes, it does.
It does. And coming back to today's, ma'am, thank you very much for coming. And to introduce Dr. Haqqani. Dr. Haqqani, she is MBBS. She's done her post-graduation in psychological medicine. And she's currently practicing in South Mumbai at Sapai Hospital, Health Springs, and clinic. She has an amazing experience. Her specialization is anger management, stress, relationship issues, behavioral issues in children, depression, and mood disorder.
Thank you, Mr. Arun Jha. Thank you, Mr. Ajmer Singh, for having me speak about and contributing a little about mental health awareness. So today's topic, we are going to talk about depression, loneliness, and coping strategies. Because of Corona times, we are all locked down. We had to face a lot of difficulties. Many actually got better, many got worse because of the situation. But we all suffered loneliness. We all suffered some form of anxiety, some form of sleeplessness. So it affected our mental health. We know that to have a completely healthy life, to be mentally healthy, physically healthy, and socially healthy. So all these three parameters need to be at the optimum to have your optimum health. And so therefore, mental health becomes a very important part of the total health of a person. So in this current times, I'm thankful that people have become aware that mental health is equally important as physical health. And mental illnesses or psychiatric illnesses are a medical disorder. May it be depression, compulsive disorder, bipolar disorder, or any addiction. Whatever the diagnosis is there, it is a mental health disorder. It is a medical disorder, and medications are safe and easily available and are not habit forming. So treatment is available. So if you have an optimal mental health, you have an optimal physical health, which means you have a optimum positive good health. So in this corona times, like we all have gone through loneliness. Suddenly we were running from here to there. Our life was very fast paced. Now it has become slow paced suddenly. And due to lockdown and social distancing, there are restrictions. So the lockdown has been uplifted now. There are fewer restrictions, but still we are scared to go out. We don't socialize as much as we used to. We maintain distance. So the connectivity which we had with others, we used to meet 100 people before, now we meet only 10 people. So that leads to a little bit of social isolation. So this leads to a sense of lack of emotional connection and companionship. So this is called loneliness. And this loneliness, it comes from within. So loneliness is a sense of lack of emotional connection and companionship. But it is a waxing and waning feeling. It comes and goes. You feel lonely sometimes, but then you do get better. But many times you don't get better. The loneliness stays for days together. And when that happens, that means something is wrong. Probably you are going into depression. And you need to go see a psychiatrist for that and take medication and or therapy, whatever the psychiatrist recommends. So since loneliness and depression go hand in hand, let's now go on to what is depression. So today we use depression as a very loosely used term. Okay, so if you ask me that, okay, my day was so bad today, my boss shouted at me, I'm so depressed. My husband fought with me, I'm so depressed. My children are not doing well in school, I'm so depressed. So we are using this term very loosely. For anything and everything, if we are sad or upset or irritable, we are saying, oh, I'm depressed today, I don't want to talk today. Or we may say that, one of my relatives was suffering from depression. So for any mental illness, maybe OCD or any schizophrenia or psychosis, people use the term depression. So depression is used for anything and everything. So it is a job of a psychiatrist to differentiate whether it is actually depression or it is a normal upset feeling, sadness, or it is something else. So, but as a person, as you and me, how do we know that this is not depression or this is depression and it is not just a feeling of sadness or just a feeling of, after breakup, people or they lose something very close to them, you feel sad. But that is sadness. You don't go on to becoming depressed just because you have lost your precious thing or you had a breakup. Many times it does not happen. We do cope with it. So when do you know that you have been depressed? So there are three things which tell us that we are depressed. The duration of the symptom which you're having, the sadness, the severity of the sadness, and the intensity of the sadness. So if the sadness is there almost every day, or lack of interest is there almost every day for weeks together, and the intensity is so severe that it is affecting your daily routine, or it is affecting your work, your school work, your academic performance, your job, your socialization, you are not able to enjoy relaxation or leisure activities, then there is some problem because it is hindering your day-to-day activity. So when you have all these symptoms which occur almost every day, throughout the day they are present for at least 2 weeks, then we can call it you are having depression. So when a patient comes to me in my clinic and says, okay, I'm depressed. So just by if he says I'm depressed, I don't accept that he's depressed. I will ask more. It takes me around half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour to come to a diagnosis. It is a very long process because many times what looks as depression is not depression. So what happens? What the patient will come in the clinic to tell me that I will see that okay, he's suffering from depression. So first and foremost, there will be the patient will say, I'm not feeling myself. I have sadness in me. I feel sad all the time. People are laughing around me, and I wonder why are they laughing? How can they be so happy when I'm so sad? I am very irritable, or I get very tearful on very small, trivial things. When somebody tells me something, I become tearful. I have lost interest in all the activities. I don't even feel like going to work. I have feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness. There is lack of energy, tiredness. There's a strong feel of feelings of guilt, self-blame. I blame myself a lot for anything because I feel that I'm worthless, I don't deserve it, and it is better that I was dead or I want to kill myself. The most dangerous part of having depression is that it leads to suicide. So, treating depression is you're preventing a person from committing suicide. And there is energy loss. The patient feels that there is emptiness around me, there is darkness in this world is not worth living. And the patient is frequented with thoughts of suicide. I want to commit suicide. It is better that I commit suicide. There is lack of sleep. Sometimes these depressed patients, they sleep a lot. Also, with all these symptoms, the relatives complain that he or she sits alone in the room, doesn't communicate with anybody, doesn't talk to anybody. The patient has become withdrawn. If you see a friend that who was active on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, etc., Instagram, but suddenly has shut off the account, has suddenly become inactive, then there is something wrong. So these are the signs which tell us that the person is socially withdrawing from everybody, and this is one of the major symptoms of depression. So if all these symptoms, most of these symptoms are present in somebody for at least 2 weeks and they occur every day, almost every day, then they are suffering from depression. Now we have seen what is depression and we have seen what are the symptoms of depression. So depression is a medical disorder. So what are the causes of depression? Now, causes of depression, there's not only one single cause of depression, there are multiple causes of depression. And all these causes are interrelated to each other, like you can see on the slide. They're connected with each other. So there is a genetic cause, there's a biological cause, there's an environmental cause, and there's a psychological cause. Now, in genetic cause is that few people are genetically predisposed to getting depression, few people are not. Suppose person A and person B are exposed to a stress X. So the person A, if the person A is genetically predisposed to having depression on exposure to the stress, environmental stress or psychological stress, he is more likely to develop depression than the person B who is not genetically predisposed. Similarly, it runs in family. It is hereditary. So if my mother had, or my father had, or my aunt had, or my uncle had, studies have shown that I am more likely to have depression than my friend in whose family depression is not there. So what are the environmental causes of depression? Environmental stresses of depression. There are different stresses like relationship issues, financial issues. Like in Corona times, people have lost their jobs. It could be a sign of depression when they're not able to cope and they don't have much resources left. So they may burn out because of stress. You enter a burnout phase. If you don't recover from that burnout phase and the stress continues, you go into depression. And psychological factors. What are the psychological factors? Early loss of one or both parents, abuse, neglect, poor ability to relate to others can result. These are the psychological factors or psychological stress, which can lead a person to depression. So biologically, let's see what happens in the brain. When you have depression, we all know, we have read everywhere. So we all know there is some chemical locha. Everybody knows that. So, and our brain is full of neurons, nerve cells, the brain cells, they're connected to each other. How do they communicate with each other? By nerve cells, by neurotransmitters or the chemicals. So in depression, basically what happens, the feel-good neurotransmitter or the neurochemical is disturbed. The levels is disturbed in various parts of the brain, especially the emotional part of the brain, that is the amygdala. Amygdala is the emotional part of the brain. And studies have shown that activity is higher in this part of the brain in patients who are depressed. Also, the serotonin, which is the main mood hormone, main mood chemical in the brain, has lower levels. So we have understood that depression is not only caused by one thing, but it is caused by a lot of various factors. So after seeing all that, we come to the treatment part. Now, like any other medical illness, depression has a cause, it has symptoms, and it has biological changes which occur in the brain. So, therefore, it must have some treatment. Treatment is available. There are psychiatrists who are at reach, and there are two types of treatment. One is medications, and other is psychotherapy. Both medication and psychotherapy, if done together, have better results than doing either one of them alone. The medications which we give for depression, they bring the serotonin levels to the optimum so that your brain, which is missing serotonin, gets that serotonin from outside when we give those medications, or we increase the level of serotonin by giving these medications. These medications are called serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So the brain does not destroy the little serotonin which you have. And also these medications and therapy, it results in neuroplasticity of the brain. What does neuroplasticity mean? It changes our brain in depression goes into a cycle, in a depressed cycle. So when you do therapy or when you do medication, it breaks this cycle and puts it into a positive cycle and positive coping mechanism. But these medications are not like Crocin. You have taken the medicine, your fever will go away within half an hour. No, it is not going to happen like that. It takes time for these medicines to act. So you have to take it for a long period of time. It takes 2 to 3 weeks for the medicine to show their effects. So for you to know that, okay, this medicine is working for me or not, you have to wait for at least 3 weeks. After that, the medicine starts showing its effect, and then we can go further. These medicines which are given, there is a myth that they are addicting. They are not safe. What if I get side effects? No, these medicines don't have so serious side effects. And if they do, there are other alternatives available. So we always start with a slow, small dose, and then we take it up. If there are side effects, we can always take it back. But those having depression need to take the medicine. They are not habit forming. If you stop the medicine after feeling okay, after a month, your symptoms will come back. So even if you feel better, 100% better, after 2 months also, you have to take the medicine and stop only when your psychiatrist tells you to. With any mental illness, it goes with the same as depression also. If we spot early, if we catch it early, if we treat it early, the results are better and you recover faster. So in depression, we do something called as cognitive behavior therapy also. But how do we cope? How do we cope in our day-to-day life? So we talk about something called as resilience. What is resilience? Resilience is the ability to bounce back from tragedy and difficult situations. You can see the flower on the presentation. It is a difficult situation for this little seed. It is all dry, it is drought, there is so much stress, but still it has the ability to bounce back and grow and turn into a beautiful flowering plant. So that is what is resilience, the ability to bounce back from tragedy and difficult situations, the various ups and downs in life. It is an important brain function. It is a protective effect that our brain has. So every time we go through stress, we don't develop depression. Just because of an exam stress, we don't go into depression. Just because of some breakup, we don't go to depression. So how we are coping, so our mind is coping, our brain is coping. So it's a protective mechanism. It tells us how fast also, even if you have depression or any other mental illness, this resilience in us, in our mental resilience, tells us how fast we will recover from the illness. It also tells us how much resources we have, how much coping abilities we have. It promotes recovery and better outcomes. So how do we improve this resilience? So for physical resilience, of improving our physical strength, what do? We do exercise, we eat well, we sleep well, we eat healthy, we keep ourselves busy. So like that. Similarly, we can improve our mental resilience as well. So how do we do that? So we can do by improving our coping skills and taking care of our mind. So there are 6 steps in which we can control or improve our resilience. So what are they? The first one is to develop a sense of control. We humans like to be in control of things around us. We don't like it when we don't know what is going to happen. We like control, so we feel powerful and we feel at ease and our anxiety is low. So it is better that we can control. But how can you control everything? It is not possible for us to control everything. You can control things which are there in our control. How can you do that? By making a routine. Form a schedule of day-to-day activities. Follow the routine. When you do that, it gives you a sense of control. It improves your self-confidence and it helps you with the uncertainties and you feel better about yourself. So this is one. Second point is make goals. How? Goals. So always have goals, just not goals like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not like that. You have to have SMART goals. What are the SMART goals means? It's a mnemonic: specific, measurable, affordable, realistic, and timely. So what do you mean by that? Specific goals. Suppose you want to get a job as a manager in a company. So that is a specific goal, that I want to get a job as a manager. Okay, fine. And you have to attach a time limit to it. Okay, in 3 months' time, I will get a job. But how will I get it? You have to write how will you get it. You have to write the resumes. You have the credentials. If you don't have, then how much time you have to, will it take for you to achieve those credentials or achieve those that education to get to that goal. So it has to be time specific. You have to define your goals. It has to be measurable. So after a month, if I feel that, okay, I have to check on my progress, I am able to check on my progress. And when I do this, I get confident. I get motivated to do more. The third is self-care. Like how you take care of yourself physically. You have bath, you brush your teeth, you eat well, you exercise. So same way mentally, you need to take care of yourself. How will you do that? By positive self-talk. So whenever you talk to yourself, look in the mirror and talk to yourself. Don't be too harsh on yourself. Like you can say that how you presented your, suppose you had a meeting or a presentation with your boss and you could not do well. So don't be too hard on yourself. Don't be too critical of yourself. Tell yourself it's okay. It's okay. It was just a mistake. I tried to solve it, but I couldn't, or I could. Even if I couldn't, it's okay. Let's move on for this. It was not done on purpose. And don't judge yourself. It's okay to be wrong and learn to forgive yourself. While you look in the mirror, you can say, I forgive the mistake because it is the mistake which was wrong. It was not you who were wrong. Second is self-care. Second in self-care is mindfulness. So practice being mindful. What do you mean by mindful? Mindful means being aware of yourself. In mindfulness, we practice aware of me first, not others, but me first. So I'm aware about my surroundings. If you feel very anxious, be aware of your surroundings, where you are. See three things that you would like to see, three things. And if you really need to ground yourself, come in the present from your anxious thoughts. Just observe three things around you, like maybe a fan, a car, a tube light. Hear three things around you. You can smell three things around you or feel three things around you. Many people, when they wake up, they are generally depressed or very anxious early in the morning and when they wake up. But as the day progresses, they are okay. So for them to reduce their anxiety, they can do is that, they can feel three things around them. They can feel the blanket around them. They can feel the cushion. They can feel the bed, which is hard. They can feel different textures. This helps to lower your anxiety, mindfulness. Meditation. Meditation with deep breathing exercises every day done for at least 10 minutes helps improve your concentration, attention, and lowers your anxiety as well. Fourth point for self-care is being grateful to what you have. Because all the time we are struggling, we are miserable because we are complaining about everything. So if you be grateful, it's a very good habit to, before you go to sleep, to write 5 things that you are grateful about. Okay, I'm grateful I had a hot cup of tea today. I'm grateful that I spoke to my mom today. I'm grateful that I could spend time with my daughter today, etc. You could be grateful for small things like, having a hot shower today. That is fine. The fifth thing in self-care is helping others. So when you help others, you are telling yourself that you can do much more. You are useful and something you could do which the other person could not do. So this again increases your motivation. It increases your confidence. Keep yourself busy. They say an empty mind is the devil's workshop. That is true. So keep yourself busy. If you don't have anything, clean your closet, learn new hobbies, learn new skills. There are so many things which are now easily available online. Learn a new hobby through online. For entertainment, you can watch Amazon, Netflix, again, which are very easily available, whatever you like. The fourth thing is to combat loneliness. Like we said, that loneliness is a sense of lack of emotional connection and companionship, which I had explained earlier. So in this corona times, what has happened, people have become lonely. But they have coped well, but still they are lonely. But they have not gone into depression yet. So if there is loneliness, you're feeling this lack of emotional connection, you want to connect, do it. How you're going to do? By reconnecting with your friends and family. Jot down the list of all those people who matter to you the most. And this list is very small. It's your close family and few close friends, 1 or 2 close friends. So it is generally only 4 or 5 people. So try and reconnect with them over WhatsApp or Skype or FaceTime. It's better to connect through video calling or audio calling because it gives you that personal touch. It gives you a sense of belonging rather than a texting or a chat messaging. Okay, but what happens is we are lonely. We are still working, like you said, but we have to keep ourselves busy. We are keeping ourselves busy, but we are still working. we are working, but we are still lonely. So create a virtual workplace. Call up a buddy at your work, call up a colleague or your supervisor at work. Ask them to be your buddy. So you all both can keep a watch on each other. You all both can reach out to each other. You all both can see each other's progress. Like that, you have a human connection. Again, with this, try and do it over audio or video calling rather than an email or a text calling, because it gives you a personal touch and a sense of belonging and a sense of connectivity. But like I said many times, if this loneliness and emptiness does not go away, it could be a sign of depression. So you should need to see a psychiatrist for the same. Now, what is the fifth coping strategy? The most common thing which all of us have gone through is anxiety. Anxiety is both good and bad. So when we are going for a job interview, we are anxious. Our body is going to get anxious anytime we do anything. Anytime we take up something new or we have to go anywhere, even for a party, we are anxious. So this is a good anxiety. We call it good anxiety. This helps our body or the brain cope that, okay, we have to do something. There is some a need to give attention to something. So our body, this is our mind's way of telling our body to get ready for the problem and to find the solution. But if this anxiety is getting too much, then it is a problem. So how will you control this anxiety? You control the information flow. If you're sitting and watching news all day, it is going to affect you. So limit this information flow. Watch news only from proper, genuine channel, news channel, and follow only that. You can watch news half an hour in the day, half an hour in a day only, just to see what is happening around the world. You live in India, you live in Bombay, watch Maharashtra news. You don't need to watch what is happening in the US the whole day. If you're a child who's going to give exam, like there was this exam issues happening in SSC, HSC, should they take, should they not take? Half of the exams have been taken, half of the exams have not been taken. When will it be? But you are already a working person. You have crossed that. But looking at those news is causing anxiety. Don't watch it because it doesn't concern you. Why do you want to watch it? Second is accept uncertainty. In the beginning only, we humans, I said that we humans like to be in control of our surroundings. So when we are not in control, that means we don't know what is happening. So we are scared of these uncertainties. We have fear of unknown. So it is, I've always seen in my practice also, when I make people realize that they are living with uncertainties, they accept, okay, everything is not 100% certain, and I was still living through it, and these uncertainties were never my issue. Like, I want to go out today. Will I get a cab? No. Yes, I don't know, but we are certain that we will get a cab. We are assuming we will get a cab. I'm getting up today morning. Will I have time to have my tea before I go to work? No, I don't know, but we are assuming that I will get that. I will reach time at work if I leave 1 hour early. Yes, but I'm not so sure. Still, you're not sure. So we are living with uncertainties and we are doing pretty well with it. So once you realize that we are living with a lot of uncertainties and still coping, and we cannot be 100% certain, this helps us calm our nerves. The third way to combat anxiety is set up a worry period. So if you are worrying the whole day, please set up a worry period that, okay, I will worry only between 3 to 3:30 in the afternoon, or maybe 9 to 9:30 in the night, once in a day. And that is my worry period. I will not worry otherwise during the whole day. I will not do any worrying during the whole day. But still worries do come. So you tell the worry, your mind to stop. Write down the worry in a diary. You can make a worry diary also. Write down in it, and then tell your mind, train your mind that I will come back to this worry at 3 o'clock, which is my worry period. So you worry only during that worry period and try and find a solution in that period. Otherwise, you move with your daily routine. Sometimes it may happen that during the worry period that you are not getting any work. 3 to 3:30 you are sitting and there is no anxiety, there is no worry, nothing. It's okay. We forget that today worry period is over. We didn't use it. We don't use it again. We use it the next day. And every day you reduce this worry period by 5 minutes. This helps you cope better. Many times, like loneliness or just mere sadness may progress to depression. Same way, anxiety can be normal anxiety, but it can progress to a debilitating medical condition, mental illness, like a generalized anxiety disorder or OCD or a panic disorder. How do you know that? Again, by its duration, when it is almost whole day, every day, for weeks together, you start having severe symptoms like panic attacks, rapid heart rate, sense of impending doom, and you're not able to do anything else. You are not doing well at work. It is affecting your work. It is affecting your social life. So then this should increase your, this should put on your red flag, and it tells you that you need to see a psychiatrist or the same. Now, the last and most important thing I would like to talk about is sleep. So, if you are having a good night's sleep, which is around 8 to 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours for an adult, and you're feeling refreshed, that means you are mentally healthy. But if you are not having good night's sleep, that means something is wrong. So, many times, what happens is people have difficulty with sleep. But if we change a little, if we tweak their habits a little, their sleep time habits a little, they get better. So, what are these sleep hygiene methods that we have? First and foremost is never nap in the afternoon. Avoid the nap trap. Keep the wake up time the same. No matter what time you go to sleep, the wake up time has to be the same. If your wake up time is at 7:30, you sleep at 7, till you have to wake up at 7:30 only. Use your bed only for sleep. Sleep early, it's around 10, 11. Do not delay the sleep, because when you do delay the sleep, your brain takes your sleep-wake cycle to be 27 hours a day instead of 24 hours a day. And when your brain is saying that, okay, my full day is 27 hours, it will never sleep earlier or the time at which we are supposed to go to sleep. And then you keep complaining that I'm not getting sleep, because your brain is set to 27 hours a day instead of 24 hours a day. Also, keep exposing yourself to the sky or the sunlight. So this keeps telling your brain that, okay, now it is morning, it is afternoon, it is evening. So the sunlight or the daylight sends signals to your brain about the sleep-wake cycle, and it is not disturbed. Do not drink stimulants like tea, coffee, energy drinks after 6 p.m. Keep 1 hour wind down time before going to sleep. Suppose the sleep target is 10 a.m., 10 p.m. Do not use your wind down time starts at 9. After 9 o'clock, do not use any screen, because screen gives out blue light, which looks like daylight, confuses our brain, and it interferes with us falling asleep. Use bed only for sleeping. If you go to bed for 30 minutes, you're on bed, you're not able to sleep, just get up from the bed, go out in another room. Once you start, read a boring magazine or a boring book. Do not switch on the TV or your phone, and then come back to sleep once you start feeling sleepy. And exercising, taking a hot shower helps you sleep better. But even after following these sleep hygiene methods, you are not able to sleep. Your brain is telling you that something is wrong. You need to figure that out what is wrong. You need to go to a psychiatrist and ask for help to figure out what is wrong, because only sleep not being okay is not enough. There is something wrong going on in your mind. So thank you for listening, everybody. Stay safe, stay socially connected. And I'm glad I was helpful in creating a little awareness about depression and positive coping strategies. So, if there are any questions, I'd like to take them.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, we have a from one of the participants.
Yes.
So this participant, according to this person, that he feels isolated, he feels lonely. Although you've answered these questions, what should he do about it? As I read out from the question, he's completely distraught. So that restlessness is there. So what do you advise him?
Okay. He has also written that my life was close to perfect and we moved and I lost my friends and I can't make any where I live now. Yes, this is a very common problem with a lot of people. So, firstly, how will you make new friends? By having a common, how will you make friends? By having a common hobby. So, depending on the age, if he is going to school or college, he will have friends in school or college. But if he is not going to school or college, he is working. So, there is not much space to make new friends. Either you can make new friends in the building or you can make new friends in the at workplace, your colleagues, or you can join a hobby where people are there. There he can connect to more people. But since he is also complaining of other things that what were can you he's also complaining of loneliness and since a long time I think so I think he should see a psychiatrist and get himself completely evaluated. So, and if it is depression, then there is treatment available and there is no harm in taking those treatments.
There's another question.
Yes.
Yeah. There's another question we have. It's for what is the difference, being under anxiety and then depression? How is depression different from anxiety? Would you like to answer that?
Yes. Okay, so depression is, like I told you, it is feeling sadness, loss, lack of interest, helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness. Depression is a mood disorder. So your mood is gone. You don't feel like doing anything. All you may want to do it, but you don't feel like doing it. And but in anxiety, what happens? You have a lot of anxiety symptoms like breathlessness, hyperventilation, increased heart rate. You get feelings of impending doom. There is sweating. There is palpitations. You feel like you're okay. I'm going to die now. Something bad is going to happen. So in that anxiety period, that this is what happens. But in depression, you don't get this anxiety symptoms like breathlessness and palpitations and sweating. You feel sad, you feel suicidal, you feel that you are worthless, you are helpless, and that you are no good. It is better that you were dead.
And also, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes. Any other question?
Yeah, sure. We're going to bombard you with questions.
Yes, please do.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Now, as I asked you at the beginning of the session that, we have a, huge shortage of psychiatrists and we have a huge shortage of clinical psychologists and mental health workers. You go around markets everywhere, we have general physicians also. And why is it that, for, locating a psychiatrist, I have to do Google search, then look for who is the best psychiatrist and, how can we resolve this? How can we overcome this problem? And the second part of the question is, the stigma around depression. I do ask this question to all the panelists. I mean, what can be done to destigmatize it? how can we reach out?
So what we are doing is reaching out part. I think all psychiatrists and all the psychologists and yes, with the help of people like Mr. Arun Jha and people like you, we are reaching out to people to create mental health awareness. We are saying that it is a medical disorder. It is okay to be depressed. It is okay to take treatment. And people are becoming more aware. Initially, what used to happen that if a person is depressed, people used to not understand. People used to feel that, okay, this person is lazy. People used to feel that this person is lazy and just not doing work. Or people used to feel, यार इसकी शादी करा दो ये ठीक हो जाएगा, या इसको बाबा के पास लेके जाओ, या उसको मस्जिद में लेके जाओ ठीक हो जाएगा. But no, now people are recognizing it as a medical disorder. People are accepting it. And yes, government, like in even this year only, the government has started mental health awareness programs also. So yes, people are coming forward, and I have seen this change occurring more common with the teenagers. People who are elderly or maybe, above 50, they're still not accepting it. But the teenagers are accepting it today, and they have no they feel no stigma in saying that, okay, I'm going to a psychiatrist. They in fact recommend their friends also that I'm going to a psychiatrist, I'm seeing this one, he or she is really good, why don't you also go? And about the scarcity of psychiatrists, yes, there is scarcity because there is fewer seats and fewer medical colleges which need to be increased. I think the government has already started a step in that direction by increasing seats in psychiatry. So yes, it is going on. Psychologists, there are a lot of psychologists.
We have another interesting question, and
Yes.
I think interesting in the sense, and I must also take a bit of blame. It's sort of about media, and that about the recent, as you said, everybody's talking about the Sushant Singh Rajput's case.
Yes.
So the question is that it is affecting this person's sleep. I mean, it is affecting everybody, not only this person's sleep. People feel sorry for him, and they, that witch hunt is on. The media has become judge, jury, executioner. It's taking a toll on people's mental health. What should be done?
Okay,
What do you
first and foremost, I feel the way media has exposed a death of a person, it is very wrong. I think media should not do that. Let the thing, it has glamorized him. I don't think he has become more famous now than he was before. And it has affected my patients' health also, those who are coming out of depression, those who are already taking treatment, they were like, if a person like him can commit suicide, then who am I, And before knowing all the facts, and now there's a lot of confusion. Is it suicide? Is it murder? We don't know. So media has sensationalized that. I think that should not happen. And giving out the names of the cheating doctors or, and quoting them, whether it's true or false, it should not have been done. And I think media could have handled in a little better way. It is their job to make people aware about the truth, but in a little better way, I feel. Because everybody is anyways alarmed because of this corona situation, and SSR's death has added to that anxiety and fear, because people are not aware. When you fear, what do you fear? You fear things that you are not aware of. You don't know. Fear of the unknown, like I said. So I think media could have been a little more responsible.
Well, would you also like to recommend some hobbies? Because this is one of the questions.
Okay, there are different types of people and there are different types of hobbies. A person who's very outgoing can enjoy hobbies like exercising or maybe skiing or rollerblading, cycling. Or a person who is more creative will enjoy maybe writing a poem or a book or painting. And people are doing a lot of mandala art, doodling. So those are for creative people. People who are kind of intellectual can go and learn something in computers, artificial intelligence. So it all depends on what you like.
Okay. That's true.
And if you're out of ideas, Google hobby ideas and you will get a list of pages and see what you like.
Thank you, Dr. Haqqani. So informative and so useful for all of us. I think at every age and every stage, I think now we cannot distinguish also that people in urban area or in rural area and those who are PG and those who are not. Anybody can be affected by this kind of thing. One question which I have seen every time people asking, and I believe before you also, they say that we say that whenever we see some gradual change, some changes in the behavior of the patient or somebody, so then we should be slightly alarmed that he is passing through some kind of depression. But what I want to find out that since the change in the behavior many a times is so gradual that family members get accustomed. So, is there any other method also which can tell us that this fellow is going to become a case of depression or mental, something like that?
Okay, so what happens is, see, many times the patient himself may not realize that he is having depression or there are changes in the behavior, but people around them do realize. So, in his behavior, he may become more irritable, or he may become more quiet, or he may not go to, like if he's your colleague, he may not come for parties, or he may come and for a gathering and go away. He may not be so contributing to the work around you, or he may just stop coming to work. So these may be signs of depression. And in his work, he may be saying that, laughing, mazak mein bol diya, okay, it's better I was dead. So these should give you a red flag that there is something wrong.
Thank you very much. Then
Thank you.
then another question people ask that many a time, you know, they do not find sudden change in the behavior, but they find person going, slightly incognito. They don't talk to many people. They come late in the evening. They sleep early, but then they do not, get the proper sleep. They are always all the time uncomfortable or moving here and there. And many a times this person would be young enough and sleeping alone, so his family member they are not able to make out whether he's getting proper sleep or not. So and then they do not go for walk, they do not watch TV. So all these things I have been told, and as I listen to experts like you, that these are sign of depression. So
No,
what should
many
be
times.
our starting point?
No, like you said, the person is living alone. The person comes to work, does work, goes back home, doesn't speak with anybody. But was he always like this? So it becomes a part of his personality. Is he a quiet person? He's a shy person, but he is performing his duties. He is doing his daily activity. When I ask him, "Are you okay? How is your mood?" He will tell me, "I'm fine. Nothing is wrong." So that is his personality, and he's happy with himself. He's happy with what he's achieved. So if you're okay with what you are, and it is not hampering your social and occupational things, then I think that is normal. That is a part of his personality. That is how he is. But if you are not that, and even if that introvert person you have described, an introvert person feels that he is not coping, his self-esteem has gone down, he is not motivated, this is not what he used to be like, then I will call that as depression or something is wrong with him.
Thank you very much. Another issue, generally people say that what should be our starting reaction? Initial reaction should be to go to doctor, or we should do something more to engage him. Because generally before going to doctor, they delay so much that things becomes worse.
Yes. So, like I said, see, it is the duration and it is the severity and the intensity. So, if it is happening to you for a month at least every day, then you must go to a doctor. If it is affecting so much, you must go to a doctor. If you're not able to cope, you must go to a doctor.
But initially, what you suggest? What you suggest that what we should do? Initially,
What I suggest,
what I mean that in the beginning itself, one should go to the doctor. This is what.
yes,
It is.
yes. So in the beginning, many times what happens was with just cognitive behavior therapy, if it is depression, if it is mild, we may be able to help him without medications, maybe. But as the illness progresses, or even as the treatment progresses, we will have to give him medications also.
Like there is one question that
Yes.
my son always complained me of headache,
Hmm.
mild headache,
Hmm.
and he's not able to perform his duty as he has been performing. Like he may not be studying, may not be going out meeting his friends. So that is that a sign of depression or something else? Because doctor could not diagnose anything. No sinusitis, nothing.
Okay, headache, and what did you say? Headache and?
He's not, that's why, because of that mild headache, he's not able to attend to his duty. Duties in the sense, does not study properly, does not go out, does not play with his friends. He
Okay.
keeps to himself that way.
Okay, it is because of the headache
Yeah.
he's not able to. But he wants to go out. He feels like going out. But because of the
But
headache, he's not.
no, I don't know, that I don't know. That has not been said.
So I think, yes, take him to some psychiatrist. Psychiatrist will tell you whether it is a psychological problem or it is something physical in the brain. And is he getting his sleep? Check his sleep.
Yes. I think my participant must be very satisfied. This is a good thing.
Or is he addicted to Amazon Prime videos or Boots videos or Netflix? Please check that. And I think things should be okay.
Ajmer Singh?
Huh.
No, doctor, I am talking, Ajmer Singh, if he has got any questions.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. So I think we must express, since she suggested, to be grateful and express gratitude, I think we must express our gratitude to her. And
Thank you.
and as she suggested that, it's okay to be wrong,
Yes.
good strategies you've shared with us that, we should not be too harsh on ourselves, and we should help others. We need to be grateful and keep yourself busy. And in fact, one of the question was that, can spirituality help? This question had come up earlier also, that the spirituality is
Okay.
good for the well-being of the person. And
Yes.
now
Yes. Yes, it can help. Spirituality actually it is a kind of, it improves your resilience. It improves your positive coping. Because when you are spiritual, when you're following some spirituality or some religion, or you're following God, what happens is you have a goal that, okay, I am doing like this. Okay, I have to do like this. You have a to-do list. You have a schedule, right? You have to follow their tasks which you have to complete, and also other people. So you are part of a group. We humans are a social being. So since we are a part of a group, it gives us motivation, it improves our self-esteem, and it also improves our resources because we are connected with so many people spiritually.
Yes. Yes.
So it reduces our loneliness, improves our resilience, improves our coping. And yes, being spiritual in whatever spirituality you like, whichever religion, it actually is good for our mental health.
Also, I would like to clarify, like continuously we have this question coming from this gentleman that he feels lonely, he can't sleep. So I would like to clarify that, he should, as Dr. Haqqani had also suggested, if these symptoms are there, you should go and see a psychiatrist, and in Delhi, good hospitals are there. Some psychiatrists have appeared on our show. Incidentally, Dr. Haqqani is based out of South Mumbai, but in Delhi, we have one of the premier institutions like Wim Hans Apollo Hospital.
Yes.
So I will request this gentleman to, maybe speak to some psychiatrists or clinical psychologists at Wim Hans Hospital. Maybe they should be able to diagnose and help him out. Over to you, Arun Jha, sir.
Thank you. I think we have done all the questions and thing has been clarified like crystal water. So actually, I'm just saying that many people are watching us on the Facebook also. So I'm just requesting all participants, if they have not been able to ask questions till now, they can mail it to us, they can WhatsApp to us, and we will be ready to answer it. We will be ready to send it to Dr. Haqqani.
Yes, sure.
Her views on this, and let us make ourselves very, very clear that whenever we have some problem, we brave to face psychiatrist. Let us talk to others. Let us consult each other that what is my problem, how to solve it. Like doctor said that every day 20 to 30 minutes, we should keep a time limit, like any schedule. That for more than this, I will not be able to spend time on my work. It is a very good suggestion given by Dr. Haqqani. And I think at the end, the National Productivity Council express its heartfelt gratitude to you for having come to our webinar, our platform. And I will request you that anytime, anywhere, if you want us to connect with you or with your colleagues on this issue, we are ready, all the time ready. And Dr. Ajmer Singh has also said that we want to start some kind of movement. We want to have some kind of, toll-free number where we can give some kind of suggestions. Since we do not have in-house capability of doing this, but this is our aspiration that we reach out to each and everybody who has got some problem. So with that, I, thank you from my core of heart, Dr. Haqqani. And I hope that in future again we will be together on the webinar. And thank you once again to Thank you very much.
Always welcome.
Thank you, participant. All the best.
Thank you.